Welcome back to the In Good Company podcast. This is an episode that you cannot miss. It's incredibly personal to me. I'm so excited to welcome my business coach, someone who I look up to way more than just business, but the way that he leads his family, his business, his life. He is one of those guys that just has so many little nuggets along the way that change everything for you. So without further ado, let me welcome to the pod, Jason Pearl.
Well, that was super nice of you to say. I don't know how I can overcome that, but thank you for the kind words.
Yeah, of course, man. And listen, one of the funny things with Jason and I is we've kind of known of each other for a little bit. And I think that's so often what happens in business is you never know when you're going to meet somebody versus when you're going to need somebody, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And this season of my life, I've absolutely needed you. And it's been just such an honor to get to know you over the past few years. But for those that don't know you, just give us a little bit of rundown. Who is Jason Pearl?
Well, first and foremost, Jason Pearl is a husband and father of two girls. I live in Buffalo, New York, north of that, a place called Lockport, New York. I'm a huge Buffalo sports fan.
Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. I run my own growth consulting firm, do some side business coaching and some consulting as well. And I feel like I'm here to serve people. Right. I feel like that's what I was placed on earth to do, and love to serve both people personally and in business. And we'll talk a little more about that. But I run a consulting firm called Nacre Consulting, almost 8 years in, and loving every minute of it.
Awesome, man. You can't follow any of your social accounts without seeing this little tagline of faith, family, freedom. Any of your accounts, the majority of your posts, and just your life. Talk about where that comes from, faith, family, freedom. What does that mean to you?
Sure. Well, to be fair, it's a mantra that I developed about 10 years ago. When I'm a product of two self-employed parents. So business was always something that I grew up with and something that I knew that I wanted to do professionally when I graduated college and, all those types of things. And I spent about 14 years working in corporate America. 12 in banks, and then I ran the growth of a privately held payroll company for about 5 years. And I was in the corporate rat race, right? Climbing the ladder, had success, all that type of stuff. And kind of in my early 30s, I realized that what I thought my life was going to be like, it really wasn't. And that kind of drove me down a faith journey that my wife helped walk me through. And in my mid 30s, I just, whether you call it a midlife crisis or something like that, I really had a faith awakening and just realized that although I was working with really good people and doing really good things, that I needed to change my priorities. And so I did that. And shortly after, I started my own consulting firm. And, faith is the most important thing I have in my life, and hasn't always been, but it is now, and it will be. And family, I've always wanted to be a husband. I've always wanted to be a father. And I think I did it okay the first 10 years, and I wanted to show up better. Right. So my family is the most important thing to me outside of my faith. And then freedom is really time and location freedom. So faith, family, freedom is how I wanted to build my life. So when I launched my consulting firm, Nacre Consulting, almost 8 years ago, I knew that the only way to prioritize those levers in my life was through doing something on my own. So, I'm an open book. I like to share a lot about who I am, what I'm all about, because who I am personally is who I am in business. And I think sometimes people have that screwed up. They're different people in their personal life and business, and that's where your priorities get mixed up.
Yeah, let's lean into that a little bit, because I think we live in a culture right now where whether it's LinkedIn and you're buying bots to get extra likes and comments, like some of the stuff we were talking about earlier, or you're trying to have all these fake followers and just show people, oh, look at how great I'm doing. Talk a little bit about showing up consistently. Again, whether that's for a client or for your family. What does that do for your business, for your life, just the consistency that you've been able to find?
Well, I think it really started with just a thought that I had. And in my early 30s, there was a quote I read. This is, "We rise by lifting others." Right. And I just kind of thought about that. I always had been a leader, whether it be sports or business and things like that. And I realized that what I was uniquely gifted at was serving others and listening to them and then helping them with their problems. And for me, I just knew that the way that I uniquely showed up for others built value and built trust and built a relationship. And I realized that relationships are the most important things in life. And so when I show up on socials or whatever, I just do it authentically. And I know that that's a word that gets thrown around a lot,
Yeah.
but what I mean by that is that I will say things knowing that not everyone's going to agree with it.
Yeah.
And I will say things knowing that I may not get certain clients because of that. And I'm okay.
Yeah.
Because I want to attract the people that I want to work with and detract the people I don't want to work with, or, you know, spend time with in life. That doesn't mean that I have ill will towards anyone else, but I know who's a good fit for me and who I'm a good fit for. And that's why I authentically show up that way, because it naturally just sets up with the people that like what I have to say will reach out and they'll want to work with me, and those that, you know, disagree won't.
Yeah. And I think when you're younger, you have, I certainly did. Hey, I'll take any client.
Sure.
I'll take anybody. And it's this kind of people pleaser mentality of whatever you need, I'm going to drop everything and make it happen.
Yeah.
And I love that about your story, is that you certainly have matured and you understand, hey, maybe I can't serve everybody, but who I serve, I'm going to fully show up as my authentic self and serve the right people at the right time. And I'm obviously one of those people.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it's a great lesson for people that are young in business. You're not going to please everyone. Not everyone is an ideal client for you. Not every relationship is going to mesh with you, right? And you have to figure that out. So, you know, I have the benefit of being a bit older than you and living a little more life. So it's like, I learned that. And I realized through failures and trying to please everyone, when I stopped trying to please everyone and stopped trying to prop myself up to be somebody that I knew that I wasn't, it created ultimate freedom.
So there was this weird pocket during COVID where I feel like everybody was like, I can be a coach. I can be a consultant. I can, I've got experience, and I did this as well. So I'm I'm speaking ill of my experience. It was great. And I've coached upwards of 50 people now, and it's really been a great additional, again, passion project of mine. What is the differentiator for working with someone like you in this sea of coaches and consultants that, again, they always have the quick 5 steps to financial freedom, or, you know, whatever these things are? What is different with Nacre? What is different with Jason Pearl and your team when it comes to coaching and consulting?
Sure. Well, I just want to clarify one point. Oftentimes people will refer to me as a coach. I actually refer to myself always as a consultant.
Yep.
And the reason that I say that there's a difference, and there's a lot of wonderful, wonderful coaches out there that have spent a lot of time in their life's work on that craft. For me, the main difference between coaching and consulting is this. Coaching, there's a lot of questions that need to be asked to lead someone to the decision on their own or what they need to address. Consulting, for me, I work with folks and say, what do you have in front of you? What are your problems? What are your issues? What are your dreams? Where do you want to go? And then we're going to work to go get there. And I'm going to sometimes tell you exactly what to do to get there. Right. So the difference is that I will want to learn who you are uniquely, and professionally, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? Because success is a choice. Every business and every individual is unique, and success is a choice. So success to you could look different than what success to me looks like. So I want to understand uniquely what you want, what drives you, where you want to go. And then I'm going to work with you and help you get there.
Yeah, it's great.
And for you and I, it started individually from let's talk about where you want to get as a leader, but then it turned into let's talk about Thomas Media Group. It's TMG. Where's TMG going? Where do we want it to go? And let's foundationally build all the things we need to build to make sure we get you there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And again, I love what you're saying about it's critical for anyone listening that's looking for a consultant or looking for someone to help them on the journey. Listening first is so critical, because we live in this world right now where the loudest voice, the one that has the flashy, Instagram reels with all the followers, somehow get all of the people. And oftentimes, even with the clients that I work with, I find people that have built incredible businesses. They have incredible systems and structures, and they can actually help you, versus just trying to get a quick buck from you.
That's right.
And again, we've very much experienced that on the Thomas Media Group side, and of course personally. One of our favorite segments in the In Good Company podcast is fails of the week. Again, with everything we're talking about with social, you show all the highlights and everything else, but it's freaking hard, man, running a business and doing these things. And so talk a little bit about whether it's this week or just maybe over the past couple of years, what is that one fail that you're like, I think people might enjoy this story a little bit?
Yeah. Well, gosh, I screw up all the time. But
Yeah.
I would say a more recent fail. So in any social platform, right? And I show up mainly on LinkedIn, and then X is the other platform that I spend a lot of time at. And the X platform is recent in the last 3 or 4 months, but on LinkedIn, I've been posting almost every day for 3 or 4 years. And it gets exhausting, right? Because I mean, let's be real, everyone that's out there, like you're sitting down thinking, what can I post that's going to get engagement? Right. And every social media guru is going to tell you, you got to sit down, you got to plan it out, you got to build a calendar, all that type of stuff. That drains me. Like, I know that drains me. It's great advice, by the way. You should do that, but it drains me. And I have bursts of like creative energy. So a recent fail was I thought that I had everything kind of keyed up and ready to go. And I went like 3 days without like having the post work. So it's like I'm scrambling to do it. One time I posted the same thing twice. It was because I was moving too fast and it was an error. So like fail of the week is like you show up, like somebody sees the same post that you posted yesterday. You have to go in and delete it, and then you look like a jerk.
Yeah.
So I've definitely done that.
Understood the pain of that. Yeah. We have 10 social media clients that we help manage right now, at least at the time of this recording, and it's imagine doing that 10x, right? Having to manage all of those things. So it's fun, but again, systems are super important with that. Fails of the week, man. I think in general, if we get to a place where you're trying to not be a failure, but let those failures come, and then you can respond and improve from those things. How has it made you a better leader and continue to grow your team when you're actually open about some of those failures?
Sure. I mean, I think it just, most of us in business have some form of like a perfection ideology. You feel like you have to perfectly show up all the time.
Yeah.
Right. And I did that through my 20s and my early 30s. And it becomes almost like an emotional jail, right? Because you're just like, I can't let my image look different. I have to always be great when someone asks me or whatever. And so I think once I realized and I started to lean into the fact that like, it's okay to like share about failures, then, you do it. Now, what I also think is critical is you don't spend so much time talking about your failures, but you talk about how do you not do it again? Because if you're failing at the same thing over and over again, there's something you're not addressing. It's wonderful to be able to shine a light and say, I screwed that up. But the next step is, what am I going to do about making sure that doesn't happen again? And that's where, we live in a world where people like I want to talk about my feelings and I want to talk about all these things. It's like, that's great that you're talking about all your failures, but what are you doing to fix it? What are you doing to make sure it doesn't happen again? So I love the fail of the week. It makes a ton of sense, but like also what are you going to do to fix it? So for me, I needed to change my systems. Right.
Yep.
And I needed to put some more checks and balances in place so I don't fail again at the same thing.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier that family is incredibly important to you. And obviously you guys over the past couple of years have had some of the most trying times and most difficult seasons I think that anybody could have. Would love for you to share, maybe for people that don't know some of your story. Again, kind of give us a breakdown of everything that you guys have walked through. And again, as much as you're able to share, and would love to just hear some of that story.
Yeah. I mean, those of you that follow me on LinkedIn will, know some of the story, but in February of 2022, my very healthy 15-year-old daughter started having some vision issues. And in an episode on a Friday, got real disoriented, fell down, hit her head, got sick, took her to urgent care. Urgent care said, hey, you should go get a CT scan. And, at 1:30 in the morning at Oshai's Children's Hospital in Buffalo, New York, I had a a CT tech come in and say that there's a mass in my daughter's brain that needs to be checked out. And we immediately got admitted upstairs. I was there with my daughter by myself and had to call my wife and tell my wife over the phone what was going on. And that started a 2-year journey of about 8 days later, my daughter had brain surgery to remove a 2x2 centimeter cancerous brain tumor in her left cerebellum, which is a dangerous surgery to begin with. And then we were faced with radiation treatment and chemo treatment for the next essentially year and a half. We moved to New Jersey to get what's called proton beam radiation treatment. Had a wonderful experience with a doctor out of NYU, and then came back here to Western New York and Roswell to get 7 cycles of chemo. Grateful to say and praise God to say that she's cancer-free right now. And we're super grateful for that. But over the course of the past 2.5 years, our life has been, my life specifically has been doing everything possible to lead my family and my daughter the right way to make all the decisions possible to give her the best possible outcome. So again, super, super grateful and praise God that she's healthy, right? And she's a senior in high school and on the tennis team at our local high school and is doing well, but it's been quite a ride.
Yeah. One of the things that's really unique is, thank you for sharing that, by the way. One of the things that's incredibly unique about a trying season like that I cannot empathize with and understand, but you were open with your faith. You were open with who you were leaning on during a circumstance that was well outside of your control. And from all business side of things, you slowed down selling, at least from, aesthetically, and you went all in on this is what is most important to me. And I was drawn to that story. I went to the blog posts and the updates and the worship songs that you were sharing and the scriptures that you were sharing. And in some weird way, I was drawn to you, which now we are working together. Certainly that wasn't your intention, but back to what you said earlier on the podcast, as you show up fully in who you are and you're not trying to present and, hey, here's a cool worship song. No, I'm like face down in my bedroom crying out to God to heal my daughter. And this song is helping me through. Yeah. I want to invite you to be a part of this. Yeah. So talk a little bit about, and again, we don't need to stay in this spot, but just talk about how you were able to go from, I still have to run a business. I still have to make money and pay for some of these procedures and help get some of these things, along. How were you able to show up physically to work with all of the turmoil that you were navigating internally? How are you able to do that?
By the grace of God, honestly. It's easy to look back and say like, oh, I was able to do this and do that. And every day was a truly moment to moment events, right? I'd go from having a call with our surgeon, our oncologist or our neurosurgeon, to like hopping on a call with a client, helping them grow their business. And, some people say like men are able to compartmentalize and do that thing. I just kind of felt that I was kind of carried through that process, right? I really do. Those that are listening, they may have a relationship with God, they may not. But I will tell you that like physically what I felt and what I went through, emotionally, physically, spiritually, I was not by myself. And I have a wonderful wife. We'll be married 20 years this coming Wednesday.
Let's go.
Tiffany, she's my rock, but we just were able to balance responsibilities, right? And in any good relationship, you understand each other. And we have had the benefit of knowing each other and dating for a very long time. And we just were able to fall into the roles that we were really good at. She was the nurturer. She was the one that was, with my daughter when she was sick and in bed and things like that. And I was having the hard conversations with the physicians and trying to find, so we just kind of like, we did each one of our roles that we knew that we were good at. But when it comes to business and how I was able to switch, it comes down to relationships, because I knew that if I was going to take a call, I needed to 100% show up.
Yeah.
Right. So although my clients were as gracious as possible, and I will forever be grateful for them for giving me time and space and things like that. But I do believe they also saw that when I was on a call with them and they would ask and they would, hey, we're praying for you, or hey, we're thinking of you, whatever, what do you need? That I brought it. Right. And that's what it is. Like when you make a commitment, you bring it.
Yeah.
I mean, I made a commitment to take care of my wife and take care of my daughters, and I bring it, and when my clients hire me and they pay me their hard-earned money, I bring it. Right. And so I just knew that this is my commitment. Right. And I would live moment to moment, but I knew that when it was that 60-minute call with that client and I needed to show up for them, I showed up. Right. And I did that every day until like things got a little better. And there were days that things got better. There was days that things got worse. Yeah. But building foundational relationships, both in business and life, make that happen. My clients respected me and knew that I brought it. And they were okay with that then.
It's back to the people pleaser thing that we were talking about earlier, where if you have that thing out of alignment, you would have felt like, oh, I gotta call them, I gotta check in with them, I gotta continue to do these things. But because you continue to show up in, as organically and naturally as you can, I mean, I think people respect that.
Yeah, for sure.
And again, they see you as a person. They don't just see you as their consultant. Right?
Totally.
And I think that's huge.
And there's also too, is that the way I work with my clients, like I will roll up my sleeves and get kind of in the mud with them.
Yep.
Right. And our team does the same thing, but it was a situation that, I'm not in an office every day with them. Right. Like there are things, I'm working with leaders, I'm working with good companies and helping make them great. Right. So when you have that approach, and that's the clients that you work with, you're able to say like, hey, here's what we need to focus on. Here are the action items. Here are the things that you're going to do. Here's the things I'm going to do. And then we're going to come together in the next week and, meet back on what we did. Right. So that type of relationship in the business I built gave me that opportunity to still work through that.
Yeah. I want to transition to this part of the podcast where if there's any entrepreneurs listening or people that are aspiring to start a business, or maybe they're in a business that started as an Etsy shop and all of a sudden it's blowing up and they're packing stuff up and shipping it out. The hardest part about being an entrepreneur is that you don't have a boss.
That's very true.
So you don't have someone who is checking in with you and going, hey, this is what you said you were going to do at this date. Any updates here? Hey, did you get back to all your emails? How are your clients tracking? Right. What do we got here? Talk about, again, thinking of that entrepreneurs listening in mind. How critical is it? And this is not a shameless plug to work with you. It's just how critical is it for someone to have, especially as a solopreneur or a new business owner, to have a guide of some kind that they trust, that they can actually bounce ideas off of? How important, how mission critical is that for people?
Well, I believe it is paramount to success, and it can be done in multiple different forms, right? I serve basically the post revenue. So like the $1 to $10 million range of entrepreneurs and businesses, right? Yeah. So I see many in that stage, right? So, sometimes it's the startup that's just launching. Oftentimes we're 500 to 2 million and we want to go from 2 million to 5, or we want to go from 5 to 10, right? And each one of those levels has a different set of circumstances that you need to do. But to answer your initial question, being your own boss is very romanticized. It is very romanticized in 2024, right? It is not easy. And one of the reasons it's not easy is because most of the entrepreneurs in that space have had success working corporately or professionally somewhere else. They had teams, they had goals, they had things that were driving them, and they were able to work with their team to go do those things. When it becomes your business, it is very difficult to hold yourself accountable to all the things that you want to do versus holding someone else accountable for it, right? So you have to have embedded accountability in what you need to do every day. And that's why you have to say, what am I uniquely doing? What do I want success to look like? And then you create the right processes and metrics to help you stay on that path. And then if you can surround yourself with other folks that will not be yes men and yes women, but will tell you not what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. If you do both of those things, you will have success. So I'm not just a guy on the other end of the phone saying, hey, did you do this or do that? I'm not just an accountability coach. I'm somebody that's going to say like, listen, I've helped build hundreds of businesses, right? In scale. Our company has generated over $500 million in revenue for their clients, right? In 7.5 years. And we're good at it because we know what works, and we will help you put the processes in place, and we will tell you what you need to hear even when you don't like it. And I have the same thing in my life. I have people that will tell me what I need to hear, not what I want to hear, right? And that is critical in success.
Yeah, and that's the integrity piece too. It's like you have a consultant or you have a voice or a coach or whatever in your life. You're not asking people to do something that you yourself are not willing to do.
Totally.
And again, I think as you show up and continue to serve people in that way, it just speaks to that level of integrity that we're talking about. So again, this podcast is called In Good Company, right? It's if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Clearly there have been people in your life that have encouraged you and helped continue to lift you up and elevate you. What has it been like for you to go from just Jason, the consultant, to Nacre Consulting? Getting a team of consultants on your team, again, really evolving and expanding in that way. How has that been, creating a culture, building a team? You guys mentioned that you got together here recently and, all those things. Talk a little bit about, again, for someone listening that maybe has been in that solopreneur seat, but now they're expanding into a team type of business. Talk a little bit about that transition and how meaningful it's been for you guys.
Sure. So the first 2 years in Nacre Consulting, I was solo. And then a few years into it, someone that I had met professionally in my career previously reached out to me and said, hey, I want to learn more about what you're doing. And, so we sat down, had coffee. And by the end of it, he was like, well, how do I do what you do? Right. And then I basically told him all the reasons why he shouldn't want to do what I do. Right. I basically said like, because that's what you have to do. You have to be honest, right? It's very romanticized. Say, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm doing my own thing, right? I'm my own boss. Faith, family, freedom. I'm living life. Like it's all easy, Instagram reels of, me on a beach. Like none of that is really true, right? None of it's easy. It's hard work.
Yeah.
Right. But, so I knew that when I started Nacre, I never intended it to be a solopreneur shop. It's why I called it Nacre Consulting. Nacre Consulting is the organic compound that makes up a pearl. Okay. So I wanted, most people like, oh, it's Jason Pearl Consulting or it's Pearl Consulting Group, something like that. For me, I knew that I wanted to have a boutique growth agency, and some people don't like to work for other people's names. Right. I realize I'm talking to a guy, right? TMG is the acronym, but it's Thomas Media Group, right? But Thomas Media Group is a little different than like Mike Thomas, right? Like this is the business versus the individual. So for me, I knew that I wanted a boutique agency because I built the business and started it because I knew I had a knack for helping businesses grow, but I can only work with so many. So why not put a team together so we can help serve more? Right? Small business, small, medium-sized business, the SMB is the backbone of America. It's the backbone of American business.
Yeah.
It's where over 70% of employees get paid from SMBs, right? And if I'm good at it and I can serve that group and make them better, then why not do it with other people? Right?
Awesome.
To serve a greater good, larger group.
Yeah. It's fantastic. And again, I've probably made this super clear at this point, but we have absolutely benefited over the top from having you and your team here. You guys came to an in-person team meeting. We have our, every other week phone calls. And one of the things that's been incredible even for our growing business is you look at us as a strong marketing media partner.
Yes.
And so as you're talking with your clients and continuing to show up in the way that you do, if they have a need that kind of falls in our space, you're like, hey, you guys got to connect with Thomas Media Group. And again, that's the whole purpose of this podcast, is talking about good company, relationships matter.
Yep.
Showing up and doing what you say that you are going to do. Those are the kind of things that start to bring change.
Totally.
For people. Talk about, and we're going to jump into my favorite part as we close. Talk about if someone is listening that has a great idea, but they lack the confidence, or maybe they're a single mom. Or maybe their husband works and they're in a season of overwhelm with all these young kids, or wherever they find themselves. They have a great idea, but they lack the confidence or the courage to pursue it. Give a little bit of quick advice to someone who's kind of in that spot that just needs that little bit of a push to really go for it.
So I would say that a lot of people have a lot of really good ideas, right? Before I would tell anyone to push to go follow their dreams, I'd say spend some time. If you have a spouse, spend some time talking to your spouse about what it would look like to go do this. One of the things that I tell, and I talk to a lot of people that say, hey, I want to start my business, or I just started my business. I'll ask them a couple questions. One of the first questions I'll say is, do you know your numbers? And they'll look at me and they'll say, what do you mean? Like, do you know what you need from a compensation standpoint? Do you understand what you either leaving your W-2 or going to what is that going to do to your family? Is everyone in your family on board for that? Right? Do you understand what you need to do? And then once you understand your numbers, we'll say, what's your product, right? What's your service? What's your product? Do you have an embedded audience? Yes or no? If you do have an embedded audience, how long is it going to take you to tell them about your business and get them to pay you, right? And you have to look like in a month by month basis of when your dream can actually become a reality, because businesses that don't make money are hobbies. Okay. You need to make money at your business, right? Now, I'm not talking about like the VC type of company that's raising $20 million that's still showing like negative on their balance sheet, right? What I'm talking about is the SMB market. You have to make money. Cash is king. You need to build a profitable business, right? If you can't see a track to build a profitable business, you need to have a different conversation, right? And some of it is a leap of faith and all that type of stuff, but you can't be immature at the way you approach starting a business, because no one is going to save you, right? Even if you call me and hire me, if your product isn't good, if your service isn't good, you don't deliver it the right way, you're going to fail, right? And the failure rate is pretty high. So I actually take a different approach. I will ask them questions, and then somebody will say, well, what do you think of my idea? And I sometimes will say, I don't think you're ready. Because I'm not the guy that takes ideas to a business. I'm the guy that takes the business from a little bit of money to a lot of money. That's what we do. And I just have to be honest with them, because it is romanticized and you need to figure it out. And the one thing, if I could go back to something that you had asked me about before, is about like how I work with businesses and things of that nature. One of the things that I have realized over time that matters, and it is a sense of pride for me, not being prideful in it, but it's a sense of pride, is that at Nacre Consulting, we are not the main character in the movie that is your business, right? We're supporting cast. We are sometimes behind the scenes helping you do it. There's a lot of business growth folks out there that want to say, look at me. They want to say, look at what we did. If we didn't work at that business, that would have never happened. That's not how we are, because I think when you have service businesses that come in and feel that way, it's very ego driven. We are not the main character in the movie that is your business. We are supporting cast or behind the scenes. And because we are building businesses, so when we eventually walk away, because we do, right? You're going to succeed based on what we taught you and how we helped you. It's just not a shot in the arm like steroids that puffs you up, and then all of a sudden you stop taking the shots and no longer are you big and muscular. That's not the way we work. And anyone that's looking for any type of growth in their business needs to ask those questions. What is it going to look like when we don't work with you in the future? Are we still succeeding? And that's the mark of a true engagement that creates long-term evergreen value.
There are so many consultants that build all these vehicles and never relinquish control of the keys.
Correct.
And it is beyond damaging.
Right.
We have so many marketing clients that we work with that have had this really bad marketing consultant or some sort of relationship on the marketing side before, and we see that all the time. That again, the vehicles are great. They're shiny. The nice cyber trucks, the stuff. No keys, right?
No keys, right.
And again, it's just absolutely brutal. Okay. In closing, favorite segment, rapid fire hot seat questions. Okay. That's why the chair is red. It's hot. Okay. Here we go. Quick questions. Rattle through just quick one-word responses, unless you need to give a sentence or two. But Here we go. Who's your favorite Buffalo Bill of all time?
I honestly think it's Josh Allen right now.
Amen. Love that. Actually, I have a bracelet that says Josh Allen with a heart. Yeah.
It's cool.
No worries. Not a
You
big
should
deal.
tag him in a post.
I will. If you could coach any famous figure, past or present, who would it be and why?
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
Oof. Wow. Can I get a buzzer to go to the next question?
You
when I think
can,
about
yeah.
that?
But we're coming back to that.
Okay, yeah, for sure.
What's your go-to girl dad activity with your daughters?
Pedicures.
Let's go.
Pedicures. And I'm not afraid to say it. I went 43 years without getting one. Now I love it. We do it quarterly, and my girls love it.
Done. Are you a morning person or a night owl when it comes to
Morning.
Super
productive in the morning.
What's the best piece of advice for a new business owner in one sentence?
Put your ego aside and hire for your deficiencies.
Wow, you could turn off the podcast. That's it. If you weren't running a consulting business, what career would you choose?
I would love to say I would be a professional hockey player, but I'm not good enough to be a professional hockey player, but I still play hockey. Honestly, if I wasn't a business consultant and helping businesses grow, I think at this stage of my life, I would go into ministry.
Love it. Last question. What's your favorite place in Buffalo for wings?
So here's the thing, like this takes a sentence, right? Like, I'm sorry, but we need to unpack this a little
All
bit.
right.
So here's the deal. My answer is, and I'm not going to give my address, but it's Jason Pearl's house.
Wow.
Okay? I believe that the wings that I put out of my double wing fryer in my backyard in the fall during Bills games is elite.
That is very bold.
It is very bold. Now I'm going to tell you why, and we're going to get this all on recording so you understand. Number two, I'm a Duff's guy through and through.
Okay.
I believe Duff's to be wonderful. Now, in all fairness, I have not had Barbell.
Wonderful.
Okay. And I know it's wonderful. They just opened one about 15 minutes away from my house. I've tried to go there a couple times, line out the door. I know it's great. Low key Elmo's on Millersport in Amherst, Gatsville area is great. And there's a number of other ones. I'm not a guy that goes on the trail all the time. I prefer to make them myself. I get fresh wings, shout out to Niagara Produce in Lockport, New York, get fresh wings, put them in my fryer, make it happen. My father in the late 70s opened a chicken wing restaurant on the campus of Ohio State. He was a subcontractor for cable. Okay. There wasn't late night food. He started a chicken wing joint on the campus of Ohio State. Okay. Had his brother and his sister run it while he was still running his cable business. He ended up, because it wasn't running properly, probably because, he
didn't hire Nacre.
No, probably because he had an 18-year-old and 19-year-old kid trying to run it. Right. It didn't go well. He sold it to the guy that started BW3s. So in a way, we could have been chicken wing royalty, but instead, BW3s got all the glory.
You did not follow the rules of rapid fire questions.
I realize that.
That final question really took us off the rails, but I appreciate the context.
That's right.
That's wonderful. And I cannot wait to experience.
You are more than welcome.
I will be
Come
there.
for a Bills game.
Dude,
we're going to have that.
Be careful what you wish for.
You're welcome.
I'll bring chicken wing dip or something that my wife will probably make, but I'll bring something.
Okay.
Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of In Good Company, where we believe that the best parts in business happen in good company. Thanks so much.